As is customary for the ruling elite of the cosmos, the Galactic Council met to deliberate their next conquest. Most sophisticated species gathered around a large, state-of-the-art arena. The generals examined data from innumerable planets they had conquered, enabling them to examine every aspect of her resources and possible resistance of the planet's population. Earth's file was almost ridiculously small. The holographic display showed a planet rich in riches but inhabited by the alien leaders took turns examining the animals the council deemed emotionally fragile and primitive. Information in a condescending tone, describing Earth as a backwater planet with its inhabitants being too sentimental and lacking in technology. They believed that human beings were characterized by their friendships and family ties, and an incomprehensible propensity to put feelings ahead of reason, which they felt that, in a cosmos dominated by power, humanity's greatest weakness was. Approach. Such sentimentality was considered a deadly weakness. One general, who was well known for his brutal efficiency, disregarded Earth as a resource waste, asking why their strongest defenses are not noteworthy, and the council was even dealing with this specific conquest. The others chuckled and nodded in agreement, pointing out that guns are outdated in comparison to what even our most vulnerable outposts have. Earth presented them with a chance to demonstrate their dominance once more. Another general, rather than a challenge, suggested intimidating other worlds by destroying Earth as a demonstration. A species so essentially weak that they could further solidify their standing as an unstoppable force. As sanctioned by the council, plans were started to implement the idea that the invasion of Earth would be quick and simple. Send out an elite invasion squad, whose mission is to destroy any possible dangers to the planet. Conversations turned to Earth's social institutions, and the aliens found the human idea of parenting perplexing. As illogical and ineffective, they were unable to understand the sacrifices made by parents, created for their kids, or the mental effort put in to raise the next generation of their society's offspring, were methodically created and developed without any emotional involvement. This absence of their contempt for people was driven by their comprehension. They viewed parenthood as a sign of weakness and a diversion from what really. The council undervalued a vital component that was essential to survival and power: resiliency derived from those very ties that they ridiculed. As they had only observed human behavior from the prism of data, and statistics can never fully capture the strength of human will, or the extent to which people will go to defend people they cared about, thought that humanity's emotional nature would bring about its demise. But they failed to see it as the source of its greatest strength. After the council made a decision and discussed their plan, Earth would be targeted in stages. First in rural areas to draw the least amount of notice before advancing to urban locations to reach their elite squad would use state-of-the-art equipment intended to stifle any opposition to the aliens' objective. Was merely a normal drill that gave them a chance to show off their superiority while harvesting Earth's resources. The generals departed the chamber at the end of the discussion, secure in their strategy. Having defeated innumerable, Earth was merely one of many worlds before it, each more powerful than the one before it. They anticipated no shocks as they continued their campaign of domination. It's important to note that their pride prevented them from seeing the truth of what lay ahead of them. The unpredictable nature of human behavior was not taken into consideration by aliens, who perceived only weakness where their strength just weakness, but where resilience existed, the ties they disregarded as unimportant were actually the. This error would prove to be expensive for the foundation of humanity's greatest power. Although they were not yet aware of it, they rejoiced in the simplicity of their upcoming victory, not realizing that the first wave of invaders was ready to challenge their presumptions in ways they could never have predicted. Launch with the most sophisticated weapons the galaxy has ever seen, were assured, almost engrossed, as they prepared themselves for what they thought would be a simple procedure. The inhabitants of Earth were merely insects that might be crushed beneath their feet, a small barrier in their way to greater. Nevertheless, they had no idea that they were going to run across a power they couldn't comprehend or predict as the alien fleet headed toward Earth. The generals went over their preparations one last time, making sure that everything was in order. Variable, or so they believed after studying Earth's history, including its wars and leaders. They thought they understood everything there was to know about humanity, with the exception of the one thing that was crucial to their search for. Nevertheless, they had failed to recognize the potency of a mother's love, which would soon upend their preconceptions. A mother and her little child lived in a distant area of the world, far from busy cities and technological centers. Life was straightforward and focused on daily schedules and the organic cadence of their environment. the mother put a lot of effort into. Despite the difficulties they experienced, she made sure her child had everything they needed. Her child's security and well-being were her top priorities, and she recognized the frailty of their existence, yet the mother accepted it with courage and resolve. Had developed resilience through years of hardship, since their remote location required them to be resourceful in order to obtain supplies, and even though help was frequently scarce, she was able to establish a secure household. She gave her child a sense of security by teaching them the value of compassion, respect, and the virtue of diligence. These teachings were integrated throughout their daily lives, creating an unbreakable tie between the child and of wonder and inquiry. Frequently inquired about the stars that were visible in the unclouded night sky, and the mother encouraged because of her curiosity. She shared what little she understood with the youngster about the world outside of their own, which seemed to be endless, while full of opportunities. It served as a reminder of the mother's duty. Despite the simplicity of their lives, the mother was determined to shield her child from the unknown in whatever form it could take. Since their house was isolated, they had no need to be afraid of any danger. Whether from nature or humanity would be left to fend for themselves, she had become used to constantly being on guard and looking for indications of danger. Her alertness sprang from love and an innate need to protect her infant from harm, not paranoia. Love strengthened her will to conquer any challenge, and the child's innocent inquiries frequently led her in order to think about the world outside of their tiny house. The mother considered the war stories she had heard. She pondered how she could safeguard her child in light of disputes and the ways that people had fought against one another. Her reflections were colored with a calm resolve that suggested she might not have the ability to face the same challenges if they ever came up, resources or understanding of the complexity of the world, but she had remained steadfast in her dedication to her child's. Their relationship was based on trust, which the mother tried hard to uphold since she recognized how important it was. Her role as a guide and guardian meant that her child's dependence on her was not a hardship but rather a source of meaning. Told her that she could still have an impact despite the uncertainty. Her deeds, no matter how minor, influenced her child's world and guaranteed their daily balance between providing for her child's fundamental necessities and fostering their sense of wonder, which brought the mother delight. Little triumphs like mending a broken tool, assembling enough food for the week, or teaching her child a new skill, moments that seemed ordinary to others, were valuable to her because they served as a reminder of her capacity to bring stability to Anne. She used her resourcefulness to bring comfort in an unpredictable society where mayhem could have resulted. Requirements, she discovered methods to comfort her child in times of uncertainty or fear by using teachings and stories to strengthen their. The child was confident and admired her, viewing her as a source of wisdom and strength, made the mother feel more accountable. Then just for surviving, she understood that she was influencing her child's knowledge of the world, and she took that responsibility seriously. The mother was aware of the risks that were present, had witnessed the fragility of life and realized that dangers could materialize at any time, yet she refused to live. She stayed focused on what she could control, giving her child a safe atmosphere in which to learn, out of fear. This attitude of fortitude and readiness for the future kept her rooted, enabling she was determined to face every day, and her relationship with her child was a partnership in many respects. The mother was in charge of providing protection and direction, and the kid offered joy, curiosity, and a sense of this mutual reliance gave them hope for their lives and forged a relationship that was both realistic and emotional. The kid found security in the mother's confidence, and the mother drew strength from it. Constant presence. The mother's life was simple, but it didn't make it any less important. It was a chance to teach her children to be grateful for what they had and to prepare them for a future she could not foresee. Her legacy consisted of teaching people how to find beauty in the commonplace and how to face obstacles head-on, assuring that, despite their isolation, her child would continue to carry her power even if she were no longer there, was not disconnected, and the mother treasured the limited connections they had with people in their neighborhood. Recognizing the need of solidarity during difficult times, these relationships served as a reminder that although they led a basic, they were a part of a wider world, and the mother's job went beyond supporting her immediate family. The mother's love for her child served as her motivation and influenced every choice she made, just as it did for others. Her commitment to her child's welfare gave her a feeling of purpose that outweighed whatever decisions or actions she took. She was merely a mother and did not consider herself a hero or someone exceptional because of her worry or doubt. Taking the necessary actions to safeguard the things she cherished most Her definition of strength differed from what others could think. It was more about tenacity, adaptation, and the capacity to overcome adversity than it was about domination or physical strength. Love gave rise to the strength to persevere in the face of hardship, a force that encouraged her to conquer obstacles she might have otherwise believed unachievable. It was a quiet strength that is modest yet unwavering and stems from her dedication to her child. The mother's life demonstrated the strength of love and tenacity, demonstrating how even the simplest life could be full of meaning and purpose. But she didn't play the role of a nurturer, mentor, or protector. She had made a decision, but she fully embraced it because it defined her and gave her the courage to face any obstacles may arise. But she knew deep within that, as long as her child was safe, she had been successful. The invasion started precisely and strategically as the aliens targeted regions they believed to be strategically advantageous yet inconsequential, such as isolated villages, and the village where the mother lived was one of the targets selected due to its lack of defenses and isolation. And her child resided in the advanced technologically equipped extraterrestrial squad. Undervalued, the tenacity of those they aimed to subdue. Their strategy was deliberate and intended to engender dread and obedience, but it did not take into consideration the unpredictable nature of human decision-making. The mother swiftly recognized the seriousness of the issue, but while others hesitated or gave up, she took a different route and relied on. Years of survival in hostile environments sharpened her resourcefulness, and her familiarity with the area became her biggest strength. Was her familiarity with the forests, rivers, and natural barriers, such as the back of her hand. And she made good use of them as the aliens navigated the area using their advanced equipment. Mother walked carefully and stealthily, taking advantage of their lack of familiarity with the surroundings, as her observations showed. The aliens' reliance on technology is demonstrated by their sophisticated suits and monitoring tools, made them both strong and susceptible, and she observed trends in their behavior, gaps in their knowledge, and restrictions on their capacity to adjust to the unpredictability of Earth's topography formed the cornerstone of her approach. She relied on her intuition and lacked formal training or advanced instruments. Using her creativity to equalize the playing field, she prioritized making distractions first. She employed straightforward but efficient strategies like laying traps and fabricating trails, which disturbed the aliens' activities, compelling them to refocus their efforts and focus on the mother's. Measures were planned to purchase time and lessen the aliens' capacity to concentrate on their main goal. She was able to keep ahead of the game by using her knowledge of the surroundings to turn the scenery into a weapon while the aliens worked together, but their dependence on the mother's central directives made cooperation difficult. Took advantage of this flaw by cutting off members of the group from their communication channels, which led to, despite the chaos and delays, she showed flexibility in her activities. The aliens' strategic thinking that they had not foreseen what they perceived as unsophisticated behavior was actually a demonstration of resourcefulness and tenacity. The mother's strategy was not risk-free because she was aware of the risks of facing such a powerful force, but her will overcame her anxiety, and she kept her eyes on the prize. Clarity of purpose guided her actions, allowing her to safeguard her child. Her ability to take measured chances that paid off was strengthened by each minor triumph. Resolve demonstrating to her that, with the correct approach, even the most insurmountable odds could be overcome. Beyond disturbance, she started learning about the aliens by assessing their advantages and disadvantages. With every interaction, her comprehension increased, enabling her to improve her strategies. She observed their reliance on particular gadgets and their incapacity to function efficiently without them, provided a crucial advantage that allowed her to directly target their weaknesses. Despite their sophisticated technology, the aliens were caught off guard by the mother's unusual strategy. Training had not taken into consideration the inventiveness and tenacity of a person who had nothing to lose. Emphasis on dominance made them oblivious to the inventiveness of people. Every obstacle they encountered served as a reminder that their people in the hamlet were inspired by the mother's acts, which challenged preconceived notions about the residents of Earth. The mother experienced periods of fatigue and uncertainty, but she persisted because she was concerned about her child's welfare, felt she could not fail, and this attitude drove her to the edge of her comfort zone. Her greatest characteristic was resilience, which allowed her to endure in the face of insurmountable obstacles. The landscape was once it became her ally in the battle, using every aspect of their modest existence as a backdrop, using the surroundings to her benefit, transforming organic barriers into weapons of resistance that the aliens are not familiar with. The special difficulties of Earth made it difficult for them to adjust to their technological dominance. was rendered useless given the mother's deep awareness of her environment. This dynamic changed the balance, which gave her an advantage over the aliens. The mother's capacity for original thought gave her using her resourcefulness. She recognized opportunities where others saw barriers. Her efforts in outwitting the aliens showed that strength is not only determined by advanced technology or physical prowess, but through perseverance and adaptation. Her inventiveness became her weapon that enabled her to confront a foe who was far more skilled than she was, and her will was strengthened by her love for her child was a source of strength that enabled her to confront unthinkable risks. She was motivated to guard and defend against all odds by this love, and her acts were evidence of the strength of the human spirit, demonstrating that perseverance and optimism can triumph even in the most difficult circumstances. Through her endeavors, the mother exemplified the strength of human ingenuity and perseverance. Her capacity to adjust and overcome obstacles became a distinctive characteristic of her opposition to the aliens. Her ingenuity and determination were superior to their advanced powers. Her acts demonstrated that, with the correct attitude and a strong will, even the most insurmountable difficulties can be overcome. The mother's unwavering will to safeguard what is most important grew stronger as she proceeded toward her objective, not allowing uncertainty or fear to cloud her judgment at any time. She had learned to take planned steps and to act only with the intention of saving her child. Sufficient knowledge of the alien squad's tactics to predict their next actions, her comprehension of their trends, and her weaknesses served as a guide, enabling her to negotiate the situation and create a strategy that would maximize her chances of success. She placed a premium on deception and accuracy, understanding that direct conflict was not an option against being such a technologically advanced force. Her approach was to dismantle the aliens' operations one by one, taking advantage of their reliance on technology and their limited capacity to adjust to earthly surroundings by focusing on important. She aimed to undermine their setup's weaknesses from the inside out and provide a chance to save her initial action as a hostage was to interfere with the alien security devices that were being employed to keep an eye on the region and track movement. She recognized key elements in their configuration and came up with easy-to-use yet efficient ways to turn them off. When their system started to malfunction, the alien squad, used to depending on their equipment, reacted slowly. She gained a much-needed advantage because the disturbance caused confusion and made them refocus. In an attempt to restore control, the mother utilized her in-depth understanding of the situation to try to undermine their sense of order. Environment to produce distractions that diverted their attention from the prisoners. These distractions were intended to take advantage of the aliens' presumptions about human nature, which causes them to further underestimate her powers. She purposefully and strategically created turmoil, causing the aliens to make blunders that weakened their defenses. With their focus split, the mother approached her goal with purposeful activities and steered clear of needless dangers. Her strategy showed a degree of attention and discipline that even the aliens with their advanced training found it difficult to keep up. But she knew that every movement counted, and she was careful to make sure that what she did matched her ultimate objective of saving her child and the other. As she worked, she noticed the plight of the hostages and how the aliens treated them, advised her of her next course of action as she started to see how she could use the hostages' presence to her advantage against the aliens. Despite their technological advantage, they had overlooked the tenacity and resourcefulness of the people they were trying to. This carelessness turned into a crucial vulnerability that the mother was keen to take advantage of, but her focus remained firm. The aliens' reaction to her acts got more unpredictable as the difficulties increased, indicating that her plan was effective. She took advantage of their confusion to open doors that let her approach. Her approach to the prisoners was meticulous, and she showed amazing flexibility in adapting to the changing circumstances. Agility. Each stride took her one step closer to her objective, and she didn't allow obstacles to weaken her resolve. Encouraged the prisoners, who started to realize that they could escape, even though they had felt helpless at first, but her deeds gave them hope and strengthened their resolve to fight this change in attitude, which became a minor but important advantage because it gave the prisoners a sense of solidarity. That the invaders found difficult to this shift was triggered by the mother's efforts to suppress her existence, which further tipped the scales in despite all of their technical achievements. The aliens were unprepared for the tenacity and their human adversaries' resourcefulness and dependence on inflexible procedures and processes made them susceptible to the mother's capricious strategies, and as things worsened, they grew more in sharp contrast to the mother's methodical and regulated approach. This dynamic emphasized the strength of her approach and her flexibility in responding to the situation that resulted from her actions in a pivotal point. She applied her knowledge of the aliens' patterns to create an opportunity to release the prisoners. Using weaknesses to break their bonds and guide the prisoners to safety, this act of rebellion disturbed the mother's accomplishment was evidence of the aliens' complete IRL plans, which forced them to reconsider their strategy. Tenacity and ingenuity, as she had accomplished what the aliens considered, even though the situation was still unstable. She stayed steadfast in her resolution since she knew that what she had done had just gave them time, and she kept concentrating on making sure the captive was secure while using her critical thinking and action skills. Became her greatest strength, enabling her to purposefully and with clarity navigate the recurring challenges. She was motivated to keep going by her resolve to keep her child and the others safe in spite of the odds. The aliens, if somewhat confused, started to reorganize, but the mother's acts had already changed the power dynamics. She had shown how resilient people can be, and by using creativity to question the aliens' presumptions and make them face their own weaknesses, her efforts have transformed the tide, demonstrating that with the correct mix of tactics, even the most sophisticated enemies might be vanquished with their tenacity and resourcefulness. The prisoners' escape signaled a sea change in the war, because it demonstrated how the aliens failed to foresee the might and adaptability of the people they wanted to control. Mother's efforts became a symbol of resistance, motivating people to fight for their rights and oppose the invaders. Freedom, her accomplishment served as a reminder that the human spirit might triumph despite insurmountable obstacles. Despite the aliens' technological superiority, the aftermath of the encounter had a significant effect on everyone involved. Superiority had to abandon their mission in chaos, which they had expected to be a simple conquest, served as a lesson in the unpredictable nature of human resistance, as their sophisticated tactics were unable to explain the level of tenacity and resourcefulness displayed by the individuals. They misjudged the retreat's significance. A tactical retreat that essentially acknowledged their error in judgment during the Galactic Council talks shifted to the alien leaders examined the unexpected opposition they encountered on Earth. Putting together the causes of their failure, reports revealed that neither the power of armies nor the progress of technology, but the acts of people who had disregarded all odds, made it difficult for the Council to understand how such seemingly inconsequential entities were able to ruin their meticulously planned invasion. Attention turned to the scammer. The Council acknowledged that their failure stemmed from their basic misinterpretation of the concept of human resilience. They had considered human emotional ties, especially those between parents and children, to be flaws. But it became evident that these very ties had strengthened the unwavering resolve that prevented their plans. Believed these relationships' power extended beyond individuals to entire communities, fostering a combined might that was difficult to defeat. The Council discussed the ramifications of this revelation, questioned their strategy for conquering, and if they could keep undervaluing the impact of immaterial elements like love, tenacity, and inventiveness. The earthly failure questioned their conviction that reason and technology were superior to emotional motivation that compelled them to reevaluate their perspectives on other species and their future plans. Yet, while on Earth the incidents served as a basis for the mother's inspirational tales, those who had first felt helpless against the invaders began to feel hopeful as bravery swiftly spread. Acts showed that power came not only from armies or weapons but also from a steadfast dedication to preserve and uphold this insight, and united communities are urging them to prepare for upcoming difficulties with a restored sense of assurance. The mother's participation in the resistance came to represent what humanity's capacity to adjust, plan, and execute an action under duress firmly demonstrated how people may influence the course of seemingly unachievable circumstances. Success served as both a personal triumph and evidence of humanity's tenacity overall, as her deeds reminded those who respect tenacity, bravery, and the will to persevere in the face of tremendous obstacles. In reaction to the unexpected resistance during the invasion caused Earth's authorities to reassess their own readiness. More cooperation and coordination are required to fortify defenses and promote cooperation. Momentum between communities. The invasion, despite its tremendous cost, was a wake-up call that brought humanity's the aliens' retreat did not signal the end of their interest in Earth, because it demonstrated both its weaknesses and its strengths. Knowing that humanity's tenacity was a threat, the Council continued to be cautious about the consequences of their failure. Possible danger to their intentions for the future, they realized that Earth was no longer a simple target, and that any further attempts at conquest would necessitate a more thorough comprehension of its people. This insight compelled them to reevaluate the assumptions that had underpinned their conquest for generations on Earth, as well as their larger plan. Incidents led to a revitalized feeling of purpose and identity in communities that had previously been split. Disparities were reconciled by their similar experiences, and the invasion served as a unifying event that served as a reminder of the mother narrative became a major point, highlighting the value of teamwork and togetherness. Because this unity represents the strength that may be discovered in even the most difficult situations. The lessons learned from the invasion went beyond the direct battle, and humanity started to acknowledge the importance of attributes like empathy that the aliens had written off as flaws. Adaptability and ingenuity were viewed as assets that could be used to overcome upcoming obstacles. The invasion emphasized how crucial it is to cultivate these traits on a personal and group level in order to build resilience. Although the mother's life restored to anything approaching normal, the events that transpired would permanently alter her acts had not only ensured her child's safety, but also illustrated the power of one individual. Her tale became a source of pride and motivation for everyone in her vicinity, serving as a reminder of bravery, and the Alien Council was now faced with the possibility that their decision could make all the difference. They discussed the wider ramifications of their experience with Earth and acknowledged the reality of their failure. That their strategy for conquering needed to change, because the presumptions that had served them well were no longer adequate. The limitations of their tactics had been shown by Earth's resistance, compelling them to face the potential that additionally, species may have unrealized capacity for defiance and perseverance. While they remained dedicated, the Council's attitude to dominance changed with their retreat from Earth. Considering their expansion objectives, they recognized that further victories would necessitate a more thorough comprehension of the defeat of the species they aimed to conquer on Earth. Served as a reminder that power was not only determined by technology or physical strength, but rather by the ability to adjust, persevere, and create. The aftermath of the invasion had a long-lasting effect on both sides for humanity. A time of epiphany and development, a test of the aliens' fortitude and solidarity, and a humble experience that made them reevaluate their plans and presumptions. The incidents brought to light the intricacy of interspecies dynamics and resistance's unpredictability, laying the groundwork for a future characterized by possibilities and difficulties.